Welcome to This Explainer, everyone. Today, we are investigating a massive breaking discovery out of Egypt's western desert that is completely redefining how we understand ancient communities and human survival. Now, when you or I think of ancient Egypt, our minds probably go straight to the lush, green banks of the Nile, right? Or maybe the towering pyramids of Giza. But recent excavations are pulling our attention away from the river and out into a much more unforgiving landscape, revealing some truly spectacular finds that are literally rewriting the story of human adaptation.
So, let's kick things off by asking, what do you actually think is buried beneath those hyper-arid sands? Most of us would assume it's just miles and miles of empty, completely inhospitable dunes. But, as archaeologists from the Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities have just revealed, well, those shifting sands were actually acting as a protective blanket. They've uncovered a fully integrated, incredibly well-preserved Byzantine-era city in the new Valley Governorate. And we aren't just talking about a couple of scattered ruins here. We are talking about an entire urban landscape, basically frozen in time since the 4th century.
To get our bearings geographically, take a look here. The Dakhla Oasis sits roughly 800 kilometers southwest of modern-day Cairo. That is about 350 kilometers entirely removed from the life-giving waters of the Nile. It's this crescent-shaped depression stretching 80 kilometers long along the steep slopes of the Egyptian limestone plateau. In antiquity, existing way out here meant surviving in total, absolute geographic isolation. So the sheer fact that a massive settlement existed in this exact spot is this fascinating, almost impossible puzzle.
Now, what's absolutely wild about this site, specifically the Ain al-Sabil site, is the sheer scale and the meticulous urban planning. This whole city was built entirely out of mud brick. You've got main streets running north to south, intersected by east-west cross streets that deliberately form these open public squares. Right at the heart of it all sits a mid-4th century basilica-style church. And get this, the city's outskirts were heavily fortified with thick defensive walls and 2 massive watchtowers. So this wasn't just some temporary outpost. This was a highly organized, completely self-sufficient community, deeply entrenched in the desert.
But to truly bring the past to life, we've got to look beyond the massive architecture and peek into the pockets of the everyday people who actually lived there. Archaeologists uncovered a collection of about 200 pottery fragments, which are known as ostraca. These were essentially the scrap paper of the ancient world. Inscribed in Coptic and Greek, these fragments ground us in their daily reality. People used them to swap correspondence, record financial info, detail commercial transactions, and, basically send text messages to their neighbors. It's such a beautiful, intimate glimpse into their daily routines.
Looking at these tangible artifacts, you can almost smell the baking bread and the perfumes, can't you? The excavations revealed tons of domestic pottery, communal kitchens, and heavy stone tools used for grinding grain. They even found the late 4th century home of a church deacon named Tychicus. His house had these grand reception halls and vaulted roofs, and it likely served as a temporary house church before the big basilica was even built. These artifacts are absolute proof that, despite being in the middle of nowhere, the residents here enjoyed a really rich, comfortable, and highly structured life.
And they were thriving financially, too. This settlement had an incredibly self-sufficient economy. Archaeologists found large quantities of everyday bronze coins, basically pocket change, stamped with Latin inscriptions, Christian symbols, and the portraits of Byzantine emperors. But right alongside those, they found a stunning collection of solid gold currency. These gold coins date specifically to the reign of Roman Emperor Constantius II, right between AD 337 and 361. Finding this kind of hard currency proves that the economic reach of the Byzantine and Roman empires extended deep, deep into the remote western desert. Okay, so while the desert sands were busy preserving the secrets of ancient daily life inland, another massive discovery was happening simultaneously on the coast, and this one reveals a lot about how they treated the afterlife. About 100 kilometers west of Alexandria lies the Marina El Alamein site, the ancient Greco-Roman port city of Leucippus. Here, 18 newly identified tombs have just been added to the archaeological record. We're talking 11 rock-cut tombs averaging 8 meters deep and 7 surface limestone-built tombs, bringing the grand total at this specific site to 48.
But the really crucial point here is what they found inside one of those rock-cut tombs. They discovered a massive 2.5-meter-long granite sarcophagus. To put that into perspective, that is over 8 feet of solid stone. Archaeologists are currently studying the intact skeletal remains inside. But what is truly captivating, and honestly a little eerie, is that this sarcophagus was found guarded by the remains of a plaster sphinx statue. It was surrounded by a wealth of pottery vessels, amphora, lamps, and altars. It paints such a vivid picture of the resources poured into honoring the dead back then.
Speaking of honoring the dead, Archaeologists uncovered a completely bizarre and fascinating burial practice here, involving golden tongues. 4 gold pieces were deliberately placed inside the mouths of some of the deceased. Now, why would they do that? Well, this was a deeply reverent funerary tradition meant to ensure the deceased could literally speak to the divine court in the afterlife. It represents this incredible intersection of wealth, spirituality, and ancient Egyptian traditions that were still lingering and evolving during the Greco-Roman period. But, seeing this incredible display of wealth and culture on the coast brings us right back to our original pressing puzzle in the Dakhla oasis. How did these people manage to build a thriving, wealthy city, complete with bakeries, basilicas, and literal gold currency, in an environment that seems entirely hostile to human life? I mean, the desert outside the oasis is completely barren today, so what on earth was their lifeline?
The secret to their survival, and the reason the Dakhla oasis has hosted human life for millennia, was the Nubian aquifer. This thing is a geological marvel. It's a massive underground reservoir of fossil groundwater, hidden deep beneath the rock. And to be clear, this isn't rainwater from last season. This is ancient water trapped beneath the earth for millennia. Ancient populations figured out how to access this water through artesian wells. That hidden water source is exactly what turned a crescent-shaped desert depression into a life-saving greenbelt. It was literally an island of vegetation in a sea of sand.
If we zoom way, way out to deep geological time, we realize that the history of this Byzantine city is actually just the final chapter in a much larger, dramatic story of human adaptation to shifting climates. Get this, 300,000 years ago, this entire region wasn't a desert at all. It was a lush savanna with a massive paleolake. Fast forward to 8300 BC, during what's called the Holocene humid phase, and hunter-gatherers were absolutely thriving here. But by 3500 BC, aggressive, hyper-arid desertification set in, and it permanently changed the landscape into the harsh environment we see today.
As the environment aggressively dried up, these ancient people had to adapt their survival strategies, or they simply wouldn't have made it. Early on, humans could rely on high mobility, just tracking the seasonal summer rains across an open Sahara. But as the monsoon belt shifted south and the desert really took over, those societies were forced to transform into pastoral nomads. They started herding cattle and sheep, and they retreated to the Dakhla oasis, relying on it completely as their one permanent safe refuge.
Just look at this stark landscape. Today, this harsh, windswept environment perfectly contrasts with the bustling, water-rich life that once thrived here. It is such a powerful visual reminder of just how fragile human settlements really are in the face of deep, unstoppable environmental shifts. Eventually, the sands won. They swallowed the basilicas, they swallowed the halms, the golden coins, hiding the whole shebang away for well over a millennium.
Which leaves us with a pretty profound final thought. We've just seen how ancient peoples adapted to extreme climate change, retreating to an oasis to build an incredible city before it too was claimed by the sand. Well, as our own global climate shifts today, it really forces us to reflect on our own resilience. What legacy are our modern cities going to leave behind? Thousands of years from now, what are future archaeologists going to dig out of the sands of our era? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and remember to always keep questioning the history beneath your feet.